Loading or unloading an airplane in the real world is not as simple as flight simulation makes it out to be. You need to coordinate with the ground personnel as well as your cabin crew in order to get the aircraft loaded the way it needs to be for the flight. The 777-V2 does simulate this interaction, and I'll be covering for you exactly what you need to do in order to get this procedure done correctly. So let's go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon.
Like I have already teased in the beginning of the video, you will need to establish communications with the ground personnel and or cabin crew in order to get things loaded correctly and realistically. Of course, there are shortcuts, and we'll be covering those as well, but first let's go ahead and get into the real deal on how to load the airplane realistically. On the bottom right of the screen, as you can see here, you can see the type of interactions that we have already established. For now, since we're established with the first officer, you can see the flight deck crew symbol appear on the bottom right. Depending on what kind of communications we've already established, that symbol will appear here as well. In order to establish communications with the ground personnel or the cabin crew, we need to navigate to the third CDU here on the pedestal. We need to go to cabin interphone, and we need to select purser for the cabin crew or ground crew for the, well, ground crew. You can see that these options are currently grayed out. The reason for that is because we don't have any way to establish communications with any of the personnel. Just like in the real airplane, to establish contact with any of them, we need to select the appropriate ACP setting to receive and transmit our communications. So for the purser, this would be the cabin microphone. As you can see, purser now is no longer grayed out. And for the ground crew, we need to select flight. Now you can see that currently the ground crew is stayed grayed out. The reason for this, if this happens, is because the service interphone is selected off in the airplane. So we navigate to the overhead panel. You can see the service interphone switch is selected off, but we select it on. If we go back, you can see now it is no longer grayed out, and we can establish ground communication. So let's go ahead and do so.
Hello, this is the captain speaking.
Ground here.
So once communication has been established, you can see the symbol for the ground crew has appeared. We've now established communication. We'll end the call, and we'll do the same thing for the cabin crew. Select purser.
This is the captain. How do you hear?
Hi, Captain. Hear you loud and clear.
And now you can see the purser symbol has also appeared, which means we have established communications with all sorts of personnel that we need. We'll end the call. Let's go back to flight. But in this case, it is no longer important because we have already established communications. So let's go ahead and request data from SimBrief. We're going to go to Navigraph Services, get the data. Go back to menu, and to load the airplane, we're going to go to the airplane menu, weight and balanced, and we can fill from SimBrief. So let's go ahead and do so, giving us the total aim that we require. We can also change the field if we do want to change it a little bit. So let's go 161, and then we can go to the loading page. And here we can choose to load and unload the airplane as we desire. Before you would do this, I would highly recommend checking the CG summary, selecting optimize CG if you can, and if it changes anything, and we'll also check the weight summary. Here you can see what the airplane is currently loaded at and how much we have planned. So the actual is in green and the planned is in white on the left. If you want to load the airplane instantly, just select simultaneous full load and the airplane will load instantly. So we would like to load, however, in real time, and we'll do it through here. We want to load fuel first.
You may fuel now.
Just wanted to let you know, I am starting the refueling.
There we go. And we want to load the catering or start catering.
We are ready for the catering to be brought on board.
Gladly.
As you notice, maybe you've heard it in the background, as soon as we establish ground communications, It will automatically switch between the two modes when you choose the option that requires that mode. Passenger and crew and catering is tied to the cabin crew, and cargo and fuel is tied to the ground personnel. Let's also go ahead and start cargo loading, and we'll start loading the luggage. When loading it through this menu, like I said, as long as communication has been established and you have all the options selected for that, the ground personnel will request and open all the doors as necessary and request all the ground equipment as necessary. To change the option to either manually control all ground vehicles or for it to be automatic, we're going to go from the main menu into the simulations menu to crew interaction and voice, and deselect manually control all service vehicles. Having this deselected will make the ground personnel and the cabin crew automatically request all services you require for the thing you would like to load. You just heard that we got a message or a request from somewhere, from a system. You can see here it says ground call, so the ground crew is trying to communicate with us. You can see here on the center CDU we have a call queue, and the ground crew is trying to call us. You can also confirm this through the call indication here on the flight microphone. So we're going to go and select call queue.
Sir, we have completed loading the luggage.
Thank you very much.
We'll then clear the queue. And as you just heard, he told us that luggage has completed, so we now are aware of that situation. Once loading has completed, you should receive the load sheet, which you can move over to the left. You'll get all the values that are true to the airplane. So now that loading is completed, if we needed to retouch something or we needed to unload something, we could do so now as well. You can see the status says loaded for all 4 options, so we know that it's completely loaded. If we wanted to disconnect ground services or doors, we could do so here through the ground service option. Let's say we want to disconnect the stairs. We also have some other options here as well, and the same thing with doors. We can also request to close all,
I would like all
which in this case only means the doors. Cargo ops is again ground personnel, so the cabin crew will not interact with the cargo stuff. So technically the last thing to do if we're ready to leave the gate and to start our taxi or pushback is to request to get rid of all services. The way to do that is we're going to go back to the airplane menu, go to Captain's Commands, and we're going to request to remove all ground equipment.
We can't, sir. You will lose electrical power.
As you can tell, the ground personnel is also smart enough to not disconnect everything if you, for example, haven't started the APU. You can also request to close all hatches,
Not before ground equipment is removed.
and there you go. As you saw, you have to remove all ground equipment before requesting to close all hatches. And in order to remove all ground equipment, you need to have the APU or any other source established in order for the ground power units to be disconnected. Just a note, this only has to do if you want to close all things or disconnect all things simultaneously. Of course, if you're, for example, going to run into a situation where you want to start the engines at the ramp and you require the ground power units to start the engines, you will need to request to disconnect these services individually like I've showed before. Through the loading services, ground service, next page, and disconnecting all the services you no longer require.
Listening?
So let me just give you some quick options that you can also manipulate in order to change the way the aircraft is loaded. If you want to instantly connect ground equipment, you can do so through the menu of Explain on the top here. I apologize for the small menu. I'm unable to change the percentage size for some reason, but just know you have to go to the Boeing 777-200ER menu, Equipment, and by selecting any equipment you want, it will instantly connect that equipment that you desire. So I want to connect the ground air conditioner 1, select it, go outside, and you'll see that the ground air conditioning cart will be connected. without having to establish ground communications. And there you have it. Next, if you do want to go the route of loading the aircraft in pretty much real time, but you don't want it to be exactly real time, there's a way to change the time factor of loading the airplane. Just simply go to Simulation, General. You can then change the physical time factor from real to any factor you desire. So last but not least, the last thing I wanted to show you guys is how to instantly load the airplane without requiring any ground communications or any communications at all. As you can see, I've refreshed, and we're going to go to simplified loading on the main menu. We're going to fill from SimBrief, and we're going to select load the airplane.
Note the load sheet.
Once you select load airplane, the airplane is instantly loaded. We'll also get the load sheet instantly, and you don't have to wait for anything to complete. And that is how you properly load the airplane using real ops, or even instantly, depending on your preference. If you have any additional questions or concerns, let us know and we'll be happy to help.